They never cared about you until someone powerful did. That one line will make your enemies choke on their own envy, because the same people who used to laugh behind your back are now watching someone with real power get hooked on your energy, and they can't handle it. They thought you were invisible, forgettable, but now someone high up, someone with real clout, is watching you like you're the last mystery on earth worth solving. And the irony, you never even asked to be seen. You were just being real in a world where everyone's fake. Quiet in a world that screams, calm in a room full of chaos. And now, a high-profile person, the type that could have anyone, can't stop thinking about you. This isn't just attention, it's obsession. And not for what you show, but for what you naturally carry. Two rare qualities that the world barely even recognizes anymore. But this powerful person does, and it's driving them mad. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe to help spread this message to more souls. It's the responsibility of all of us to spread the light. One message can change a life. Now listen closely. You were never loud. You were never trying to compete. And yet you keep showing up in places you never chased. That's not luck. That's alignment. That's power without noise. You didn't dress it up. You didn't advertise it, and still, someone influential, someone who's used to being the one, is feeling pulled by a force they can't explain. This person is used to controlling rooms. They're used to people shrinking in their presence. But when it comes to you, their confidence turns clumsy, their words stumble, they're intimidated, and they hate that they love it. Because you, chosen one, have two things that scare insecure people and seduce powerful ones. One is your emotional depth. The other, your untouchable calm. You don't just walk into rooms, you shift the entire energy. You don't chase people's attention, you make them question their own worth when they lose yours. And here's the part your enemies will never admit out loud. They mocked you for being different, but now that someone with status is drawn to you, they're suddenly watching too. Quietly, jealously, trying to figure out what they missed, trying to copy what you never even tried to perform. Let's be real, this world doesn't reward authenticity. It rewards noise, followers, filters, fakery. But you never needed to scream. Your silence speaks, your aura disturbs, your presence lingers. That's what's haunting this high-profile person. They've met polished, they've met beautiful, they've met impressive, but you're rare. And rarity isn't loud. It's unforgettable. What's even crazier, according to real psychology studies, less than 1% of people carry this exact mix of emotional intelligence and calm inner power. It's like being lightning in a bottle with the cap still on. And when someone powerful sees that, they don't just admire it, they crave it. You don't need to look rich. You walk like peace. You speak like still water. You make people feel like there's more to life than performing. And for someone used to surface-level attention, meeting someone like you feels like getting oxygen for the first time in years. That's why this high-level person is addicted to your vibe. Not because you're loud, not because you're perfect, but because you're real and your soul is expensive. The kind of expensive that can't be bought, only experienced. And the fact that you're so unaware of how rare you are, that's what makes you even more dangerous. You're the kind of person they thought didn't exist, and now they can't stop circling your energy like a moth that knows the flame is hot, but still can't stay away. Let this be your reminder. Stay calm, stay real. Don't try to impress. Your presence already is the flex. And to the ones who doubted you, to the ones who only valued you when someone else did, let them watch, let them whisper, Let them squirm in their own regret. Because this high-profile obsession, it's not random, it's not coincidence. It's the universe confirming what your spirit always knew. You are unforgettable, you are untouchable, and your light was never meant to blend in. Before we dive deeper into the obsession that's building behind closed doors, take a second to anchor this moment. Drop the number 777 in the comments if you've ever felt invisible, only to later realize you were being observed, not ignored. And if this message already feels like it's speaking directly to your energy, go ahead and bless this movement with a super thanks. Even the smallest gift fuels this mission to awaken more souls like you. Because this truth matters. It takes time, energy, and emotional warfare to bring clarity into a fogged-up world. Whether it's a penny or a powerhouse gift, it all adds fuel to the fire we're building together. And now, let's get into it step by step. Stay close. If you really carry these two rare traits, you'll feel it in your bones before I even name them. This message, it's not entertainment, it's recognition. And the ones who truly carry this rare frequency never click away. Because deep down, they already know something big is watching, and it's watching them. Let's begin. Number 1, they tried to play you, but you read the whole game before they even spoke. They hate you, not because you're wrong, but because you were right too soon. Let that slap settle in their throat. Because they mocked your silence, your stillness, your refusal to play along. But the truth is, they knew you saw them. And nothing terrifies a manipulator more than someone who can't be manipulated. Someone who can't be seduced by the mask, the charm, the high status, or the illusion. You're not just another pretty face floating in the crowd. You're the eyes in the dark, the ones that don't blink. The ones that see what isn't being said and feel what others are too numb to notice. And now, that same high-profile person who once thought they ran the show, they're looking over their shoulder every time they step into a room you've been in. Why? Because they know. You see them. You don't just hear words, you decode energy. And in a world that's drunk on filters, followers, and flattery, that makes you dangerous. While everyone else is buying into sweet talk and rehearsed charm, you catch the flicker in their eye, the glitch in their tone, the micro-expression that betrays the truth. You notice when their spirit flinches. You notice when the smile doesn't match the soul. And you don't need proof. You are the proof. That's what scares them. Because people like you, chosen ones, aren't supposed to exist anymore. They thought your type went extinct. They thought the world had drowned you in distractions and trained you to ignore your own intuition. But no, you survived. You sharpened your vision in silence. And now you walk through the world like a mirror they can't lie to. That's what this high-profile person can't stop thinking about. Not your looks, not your lifestyle, your discernment, the rare ability to see behind the curtain without lifting a finger. You never call it out. You don't need to. Your silence feels like exposure, and they've never been more drawn to someone and more unsettled by someone at the same time. You're not paranoid. You're not dramatic. You're not bitter. Your clarity doesn't come from trauma. It comes from tuning in while everyone else was tuning out. You don't guess. You know. And even when they lie with a straight face, your spirit picks it up like static on a radio. They're used to controlling rooms. Their charm usually has people eating out of their hands. But you didn't flinch. You didn't try to impress them. You didn't even lean in. You just watched. And that's what hit them the hardest, because they felt it, the feeling of being seen, not for who they want to be, but for who they really are underneath the title, the followers, the show. It's not just that you're honest, it's that you're clean. You've done the inner work. You've faced your own demons. So now, when you walk into a space, their shadows get loud. Their masks feel heavy. Their secrets start itching. And suddenly, your quiet feels louder than their biggest speech. They've met thousands of people, but you're the only one who made them feel watched without being judged. They don't know whether to run or stay close. That's the power of spiritual discernment. It exposes, but it also heals. You see the sickness, but you don't shame them. You just don't let it infect your peace. And your enemies? Oh, they hate this part of you the most. Because they can't lie to you, they can't manipulate you, they can't figure out why you're so calm when you should be triggered, or why you always seem to know what's coming before it hits. They whisper that you're too sensitive, but deep down, they know you're not emotional, you're accurate. You knew who they were before they even revealed it, and you're still standing. That's why this high-profile person is drawn to you like gravity. They're used to admiration, attention, fake intimacy. But you didn't flinch. You didn't flatter. You didn't care about their title. You didn't fall for the act. And yet, you saw something in them no one else did. Their emptiness. And that shook them. You picked up on the tension in their handshake. You felt the performance in their laugh. You noticed how they avoid eye contact when their ego's under pressure. And still, you didn't exploit it. You didn't call it out. You just let the truth hang in the air like smoke from a fire they didn't want you to find. But you found it anyway, because you're not reacting to what's loud, you're listening to what's quiet, and that's what makes you lethal in a world addicted to illusion. You walk into rooms and instantly pick up on who's jealous, who's pretending to be happy, who's secretly in competition with you, and who's faking humility for likes. You don't need to investigate, you just feel it. And every time you're proven right, your power gets sharper. You're not bitter, you're not cold, you're just no longer available for pretending, and that alone makes you a threat. They can't study you, they can't control you, they can't bribe or fake their way into your respect. And that high-profile person, they've never been more confused, because for once, they don't have the upper hand. You do. And you never even reached for it. That's why they keep thinking about you. You're rare, you're precise, you're a human lie detector wrapped in calm energy. You don't talk much, but when you do, it's surgical. You don't correct people, you just let them bury themselves in the space your silence gives them. That's a power no status can buy. So now they linger, they orbit, they send signals, subtle but persistent, and every time they look at you, they wonder, how do they know? And here's the real answer. You're not watching with your eyes. You're watching with your soul. That's not something you learned. That's something the universe gave you. And no matter how loud the world gets, no matter how many masks they wear, your discernment will always cut through, silently, brutally, accurately. So let them keep guessing. Let them squirm in the spotlight of your stillness. Let them be haunted by the fact that you see everything and still chose your peace. That's the kind of power they'll never understand, but never forget. Number 2, they're addicted to attention. You starved them with silence. The moment you stopped trying to impress them is the moment they couldn't stop thinking about you. See, they're used to people folding in their presence, people stuttering, performing, giving little compliments like offerings at a throne. But you walked in like you owned nothing and lacked nothing, calm, collected, unbothered. And it shook the hell out of them. You're not cold, you're not arrogant, you're just done applauding masks. You've seen too many empty giants up close. People with fame, but no soul, wealth, but no wisdom, followers, but no foundation. You learned the hard way that the loudest applause often hides the biggest frauds. So now, when people expect you to be impressed by their titles, their money, their lifestyle, you stay still. And that stillness, it feels like judgment to them. But really it's just peace, and they've never been more rattled by peace in their life. This high-profile person has spent years curating an image that makes people melt. But when they looked at you, you didn't flinch, you didn't lean in, you didn't give them the ego boost they're addicted to, you didn't worship, you just watched. And they felt exposed. They're used to being chased. You're used to sitting back and watching the truth unfold. You're not here to win their attention. You're here to protect your energy. And they've never seen that before, not at this level. Not with your silence, not with your stillness, not with your total refusal to dance for them like everyone else does. That's why they're obsessed. Your calm makes their power feel small. Your groundedness makes their money feel irrelevant. Your presence makes their presence feel performative, because they've worked so hard to be admired. And here you are, not moved, not begging, not impressed. And no, it's not that you're too cool. You've just lived long enough to know that status without substance is a house built on sand. You've had conversations with millionaires who couldn't spell loyalty. You've seen influencers fall apart behind the scenes. You've watched people with platforms panic when the lights go off, because without attention, they're empty. So now, you don't get excited over who someone seems to be. You wait, you watch, you listen, and your ability to stay unimpressed by the outside until the inside shows up is exactly what has this powerful person on edge. They're trying to figure you out. Why didn't you react? Why didn't you light up when they dropped their name, flexed their access, or hinted at their influence? Why weren't you curious? Why weren't you desperate? Because desperation has never been your scent. Value doesn't chase, it attracts. And real ones don't beg to be seen. They're too busy protecting what already sees them from within. That's your power. That's your presence. You don't orbit anyone. You don't adjust your tone to make someone comfortable. You don't twist yourself into shapes to be liked. You sit in your worth like it's concrete. And even if they can't explain it, they feel it. You've got the kind of confidence that can't be bought, and the kind of stillness that makes noise feel nervous. They're used to ego games. You play for peace. They're used to people trying to network their way into favor. You stay in your own lane and let alignment do the work. And that drives them insane, because you didn't try to earn your way into their world. You became a world of your own. Your refusal to be impressed isn't about being superior. It's about being seasoned. You've danced with snakes in suits. You've listened to sweet talk that turned sour. You've seen charm weaponized as distraction. So now, when someone throws glitter in your face, you don't blink. You ask, but where's the gold? They feel that. They feel that your attention is expensive, that your presence is not a given, it's a choice. And that kind of energy, it humbles people who aren't used to being humbled. They're used to people fawning over them, but with you, the rules don't apply. They feel like they have to earn something they usually get for free. And that's when they start losing control. That's when obsession creeps in. Because when power meets someone it can't impress, it gets curious, then confused, then completely addicted. And let's be honest, this world rewards followers. It praises those who laugh too hard at the boss's joke, who clap when the leader walks in, who play small in hopes of being chosen. But not you. You are the chosen one. You don't perform. You are. And you never try to outshine. You just don't dim. That's what makes them sweat. They can't figure out if you're mysterious or just uninterested. And honestly, you don't care. Because when your peace is priceless, you don't trade it for crumbs of validation. This high-profile person is starving, not for more attention. They get that daily. They're starving for something real. And the second they looked at you and didn't see thirst in your eyes, that's when they saw their reflection. That's when they realized, this one can't be played. And in a world where everything feels transactional, your ability to stay grounded, present, and unimpressed isn't just refreshing, it's sacred. They didn't see it coming. They expected you to be like the rest, but you stayed calm when others would have danced. You stayed quiet when others would have sold their soul for a seat at the table. And that's why they're obsessed, because you're the first person they've met who doesn't want anything from them. You're just watching, waiting, not to judge, but to see if their character is worth your time. And in a world where everyone wants a piece, your ability to withhold is the most powerful thing of all. So no, you're not impressed, because you've seen what power without peace looks like. You've seen what clout without compassion feels like, and you've already chosen your side. Let them chase attention. Let them beg to be adored. You'll keep walking with your head high, your energy clean, and your soul untouched. That's the kind of strength that can't be bought. That's the kind of presence they never recover from. And that's the kind of obsession that doesn't fade. It lingers, just like you. Number 3. They can buy applause, but they'll never own your soul. They sold out for a spotlight. You stayed solid in the dark, and now they can't stop watching your glow. Let that hit, because in a world where everything is for sale, morals, loyalty, identity, you refuse to put a price tag on your soul. That kind of integrity, it's not just rare, it's disruptive. It shakes the whole room without saying a word. And that high-profile person, they're not just drawn to you, they're haunted by you, because you remind them of everything they gave up chasing what they thought they wanted. They're used to people switching up. They've seen folks trade their values for a meeting, their loyalty for a favor, their truth for a check. But you don't move like that. You'd rather walk away with your peace than stay and play a part. That's why your presence feels like a threat, because it reveals the truth they've been trying to outrun. You don't just talk about principles, you live them. Whether it's in a boardroom or a back alley, your energy stays the same. You speak the truth when it's unpopular. You keep your word when no one's looking. You show up without pretending, without pandering, without needing to be liked. And in a world full of shapeshifters, that's pure rebellion. They can't bribe it, they can't mimic it, they can't manipulate it. That's why they're obsessed. Your boundaries are bold. You say no without flinching, and when you say yes, it holds weight, because people know you mean it. That's the thing about integrity. It carries a quiet power that money can't manufacture. It demands respect without asking for it. And your enemies? Oh, they hate this part the most, because no matter how much they gossip, slander, or try to twist your name, your truth stands, your character holds, and your peace, unshaken. You walk away from what doesn't align, and that scares them, because they thought control looked like dominance, but now they're learning that real control looks like detachment. They can't figure out how you stay so calm, how you keep your power without playing dirty. But history has always feared the ones who wouldn't bend. Nelson Mandela refused to compromise his integrity, even while locked behind bars for 27 years. They tried to silence him, but they couldn't touch his soul. And when he walked out, the world listened. Rosa Parks said one word, no, and shook an entire system, not with noise, not with violence, with silent defiance and a backbone made of steel. Frida Kahlo painted her pain with raw honesty, while others painted what would sell. She didn't dilute herself for society's approval, and now she's remembered forever, while most of her critics' names have turned to dust. That's what you remind them of. You're not trying to be famous, you're trying to be real, and in doing that, you've become unforgettable. This high-profile person is surrounded by yes-men, sycophants, and social climbers. People who say what they want to hear, bend however they need to bend, just to stay in the room. But you don't care about the room. You are the room. Your refusal to play small for status confuses them. Your ability to lose opportunities without losing yourself, that's what's making them spiral. They've never seen someone like you up close. Someone who holds their ground without getting loud. Someone who speaks truth without needing a platform. You don't try to impress, you just are. And your consistency cuts through their performance like a blade. That's why they keep circling your energy, because you carry something they abandoned a long time ago, and now they're starving for it. Not fame, not beauty, not money, but integrity. Because deep down, they're tired of their own act. They're exhausted from living a lie, and every time they look at you, it's a mirror they can't escape. Not because you're judging them, but because you don't need them. And in a world where everyone else seems to be waiting for their approval, you're just not. They don't know what to do with that. That's why you haunt them, because your code doesn't crack. And your silence, it screams louder than their best performance. You're not perfect, you've made mistakes, but what makes you different is how you handle them. You own your missteps, you grow out loud, you take accountability in a world that's allergic to it. That's not weakness, that's mastery. You're not trying to look good, you're trying to be good. And that right there, that's what makes you untouchable. So let them keep trying to figure you out. Let them wonder how someone like you exists in a system that rewards selling out. Let them spiral trying to replicate what you never had to fake. Because while they fight to be liked, you fight to stay true. While they buy attention, you earn respect. While they spin stories, you walk facts. And that's the kind of power they can't put a label on. You don't fit the mold, you break it, and that's why they'll never forget you. Number 4, they perform healing for likes. You breathe, and people begin to heal. You didn't say a word, but they felt seen. You didn't offer a cure, but they started to heal. That's power they'll never understand. In a world that turns pain into content and healing into a brand, you stand out by doing the one thing no one else dares to do. Nothing performative. You don't post your tears for sympathy. You don't share your scars to prove you've healed. You don't chase the role of healer. You embody healing, quietly, fully, without the need for applause. And that's what makes your energy hit so damn hard. This high-profile person has sat in rooms dripping with spirituality, crystals on every shelf, incense smoke in the air, coaches repeating rehearsed affirmations like broken records. They've heard every pitch, sat through every breakthrough session, smiled through performances dressed as wisdom, but the entire time they were waiting for real. And then they met you. You didn't quote Rumi or talk about frequency. You didn't dim the lights and tell them to breathe through their trauma. You didn't offer a solution. You didn't even know they were broken. And yet they felt something crack open. Because what you carry, it's not on display. It's lived, and lived truth doesn't beg to be believed. It changes the atmosphere just by being present. Your healing doesn't come through noise, it comes through nervous systems relaxing, through people realizing for the first time in years that they don't have to perform around you, that they can be a mess and not be judged, that their masks fall off and you won't flinch, because you've worn masks too. You've been there, You've broken, shattered, lost your voice, and built something sacred from the pieces, and you never turned it into a circus. That's what separates you from the ones who sell transformation. You're not selling anything. You're not baiting people with hope. You are the hope, because your very existence is proof that pain doesn't have to become a personality trait. That silence can speak louder than staged breakthroughs. That stillness can cut deeper than 10 hours of therapy. That's why this high-profile person is obsessed and confused, because they didn't expect to feel anything. They've grown numb to energy, hardened by the constant parade of people trying to impress them, fix them, save them. But you didn't come in with hands out or ego high. You just were. And that shook them more than anything money ever bought. You weren't soft. You weren't harsh. You were clear, present, whole, and that triggered something buried, a memory of who they used to be before they sold pieces of themselves for power and praise. You reminded them of what peace actually feels like, not the kind you pay for, but the kind you earn through fire. That's what makes you dangerous in their world, because they're used to performers. You're a mirror. They're used to spiritual actors. You're the stage collapsing under truth. You didn't give them advice. You gave them reflection. You didn't try to fix them. You held your ground so they could see what real healing looks like. You didn't play the guru. You just lived the lesson. And when someone has spent years performing strength, encountering someone who owns their scars without shame is like getting hit with emotional gravity. It drops them into a space they forgot existed, a space where truth doesn't need branding and growth doesn't need followers. You carry your trauma like armor, not decoration. You've healed, not to preach, but to live differently. And that quiet transformation, it speaks volumes without ever needing a microphone. Even your boundaries heal. Even your silence teaches. Because when you walk away from what drains you, people realize they've been living on empty. When you say no without anger, people feel their own chaos. When you love without attachment, people question why they still need approval. That's the kind of transformation no stage can deliver. This high-profile person, they're used to admiration. You gave them awakening, and that's rare. That's unforgettable. That's sacred. Because healing, real healing, isn't always soft. Sometimes it shows up as discomfort, as silence, as someone who simply doesn't react the way everyone else does. And that's what you are to them. The calm in their storm they didn't know they were begging for. You didn't try to be their remedy, but now they can't forget how they felt in your presence. Safe, unmasked, unjudged. You didn't lead them to a breakthrough, but now they can't return to the version of themselves they were before meeting you. And that kind of shift, that kind of subtle awakening, it's more powerful than all the spotlight sermons combined. You never chased the role of healer. That's what makes you one. So let them keep wondering how someone who says so little could make them feel so much. Let them keep returning to your memory when all the noise dies down. Let them chase every synthetic high they want, because the kind of peace you offer, it can't be manufactured. It's felt, it's earned. And once someone experiences it, they never forget you. Number 5, you spoke nothing, but they still heard the truth loud and clear. You didn't say a thing, and still they started apologizing in their spirit. That's the kind of presence they never saw coming. In a world where people shout to be seen and flatter to be favored, you stayed quiet, and your silence said everything they've spent years trying to hide. This high-profile person is surrounded by noise, fast talkers, charmers, strategists, people who bend truth into compliments and inflate egos just to survive proximity to power. But you walked in calm. still, grounded. And suddenly, the room changed. You didn't perform. You didn't chase attention. You didn't scramble to be heard. You just were. And in that space, your stillness began peeling back layers they didn't know were showing. Because silence, real silence, the kind that's rooted in self-awareness and presence, acts like a mirror. It reflects everything the noise was trying to bury. And for someone like this powerful figure, someone who's built their world on control, charm, and constant motion, being in the presence of someone like you, it's disruptive, it's piercing, it's accountability incarnate. You didn't need to call them out. You didn't have to raise your voice or posture. Your energy already told the truth. And that truth, it doesn't need punctuation. It lingers. They've had people beg for validation. You didn't even blink. They've seen people bend their personalities to match their mood. You stayed still in yours. They've watched people inflate their confidence with noise. You carried yours in silence. And that contradiction, it made them reflect in ways they weren't ready for. They started asking themselves silent questions. Why do I care what this person thinks? Why do I feel like I'm being seen? Why do I suddenly feel unworthy in the presence of someone who's saying nothing at all? Because silence is not absence, it's pressure. It's space that forces people to fill it with honesty or get swallowed by their own performance. And your silence? It didn't give them room to hide. You're not cold, you're not rude, you're just present. You don't use silence as a weapon, but it still exposes what words can't protect. Your refusal to play into their ego games stripped the mask right off their face. That's why they're obsessed. You didn't feed their persona. You didn't fall for the curated image. You didn't meet their noise with more noise. You met it with nothing, and it echoed. Because people aren't used to silence that holds them accountable. They're used to silence that shrinks, that hides, that submits. But your silence doesn't submit. It confronts. And it doesn't come from insecurity. It comes from control. You speak when necessary. You observe before reacting. You choose your words like currency, careful, valuable, intentional. That's what unsettles them. Not that you're quiet, but that you mean it. They've lived years avoiding their own reflection. Then you walked in and showed them who they've been becoming just by existing in your stillness. You don't correct people. You don't argue with liars. You don't interrupt performances. You just let the room perform for itself. And when the masks fall, you're still there, calm as ever, watching them realize it. That's power. Real power doesn't always talk. Sometimes it just stands there and makes everyone else wonder what they're hiding. And let's be honest, you've been misunderstood for this. They've called you distant, cold, maybe even antisocial. But deep down, the ones who are uncomfortable around your silence, they're not reacting to you. They're reacting to what's exposed when you say nothing. This high-profile person. They can't unfeel that now. They keep replaying that one conversation where you didn't flatter them. That moment when you looked them in the eye without blinking, without needing anything from them. And for the first time in a long time, they questioned who they really were. That kind of shift doesn't come from speeches. It comes from energy. It comes from the quiet ones who don't clap for ego and don't fake approval. You didn't demand respect. You commanded it with your posture, with your pause, with your refusal to dance for attention. They're not used to that. They're used to people trying to climb, trying to impress, trying to belong. But you don't orbit their world. You make them question it. You didn't stay silent. You used silence. And now you're the one voice they can't shake, even though you barely said a word. Because when someone finally meets a soul that doesn't bend, doesn't flatter, doesn't entertain illusions, it either forces them to run or rise. And this person, they're still deciding. But one thing is certain, your silence, they'll never forget how loud it was. Number 6. You took the blade that cut you and forged a crown. They thought the pain would break you, it built you, and now they can't stop staring at what they tried to bury. You didn't survive just one storm, you became the storm. The difference? You didn't come to destroy, you came to cleanse. And the reason this high-profile person can't shake you is because you carry a power that doesn't beg to be seen. It radiates, quietly, heavily, like thunder that walks on 2 feet. They've seen pain before, but they've never seen anyone wear it the way you do. Not like a badge, not like a crutch, but like a scar that doesn't ask for pity, only respect. You've buried versions of yourself no one ever saw, grieved in silence while the world kept spinning. You've screamed into pillows, dried your own tears, and stitched your soul back together with trembling hands. And then showed up, again, stronger, clearer, still soft. Because you never let pain harden you, you let it hone you. They're used to people weaponizing their wounds, milking their suffering for attention, wearing trauma like fashion to gain sympathy and influence. But you kept your battles private and came out refined. And that's what haunts them. They don't know your story, but your energy tells the truth. There's something in the way you carry yourself, steady, raw, honest. You don't sugarcoat reality, but you don't let it rule you either. You've mastered the art of holding heartbreak in one hand and hope in the other, and walking forward without dropping either. That kind of emotional alchemy, it's not common, it's earned. You don't lead with your scars, but when you speak, there's a quiet gravity in your tone that lets them know you've been to the bottom, and you didn't just crawl out, you rose. That's the kind of strength that can't be taught in coaching seminars or bought through retreats. That's soul-earned resilience. That's real grit. And this person, this powerful, high-status figure, feels small in your presence. Not because you make them feel less, but because your very existence forces them to reflect on everything they've avoided. They see how much pain you've been through, and yet you're not begging for love, not manipulating for care, not acting like the world owes you anything. That kind of humility and strength, it rewrites people. They know people who have cracked under half the weight you've carried, people who became bitter, toxic, manipulative, all in the name of pain. But you built emotional architecture around your wounds. You turned grief into wisdom. You turned abandonment into independence. And instead of screaming, "Look what they did to me," you whisper, "Look what I built with it." And that whisper, it's louder than their best speech. They crave your peace, but they don't know the war it cost. They envy your glow, but they'd never survive the fire you had to walk through to earn it. That's why they watch you the way a man watches fire, drawn to the heat but terrified to touch it. Because there's a different kind of power that comes from surviving what should have destroyed you. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it doesn't need validation, it just is. And every time this person feels your presence, they're reminded of what they lack. Emotional maturity, the kind that doesn't perform pain but transforms it. The kind that doesn't collapse when tested, but deepens. The kind that doesn't weaponize the past, but learns from it. You're living proof that resilience isn't about hiding the wound. It's about making peace with the scar. That's why your story is so magnetic, even when untold. Because what they sense in you isn't just healing, it's transcendence. You are open, but not weak. You are soft, but not naive. You are vulnerable, but guarded with wisdom, not fear. And they want that. Because in their world of optics and ego, of shiny surfaces and empty rooms, you walk in depth. You don't need to dominate the room. You become the depth of it. You don't need to remind people of what you've survived. Your energy speaks before your mouth ever does. You are the emotional version of an ancient tree, weathered, rooted, unmovable, still offering shade, still bearing fruit, still standing tall after every storm that tried to take you out. And when people lean close enough, they feel it. The stillness, the survival, the strength that no follower count can buy. That's what this high-profile person didn't expect. To be moved by someone who wasn't even trying, to feel seen by someone who never asked for their gaze, to feel called higher, not by a coach, not by a therapist, but by someone who simply exists in their truth. And that truth, it's this: you've suffered, but you're not suffering. You've been hurt, but you're not hateful. You've been abandoned, but you are never empty. You've been broken, but you chose not to break others in return. And that level of integrity, that soul-earned balance, that still-standing softness in a brutal world, that's the kind of thing that keeps people up at night, wondering how did they survive all that and still stay pure. It's because you didn't let pain define you. You let it refine you. And now you walk like quiet thunder, never asking to be heard, yet impossible to ignore. Number 7. You don't beg to be noticed. You shift the atmosphere just by entering the room. While they fight to be seen, you radiate so loudly in silence that the room forgets who they were watching. That's what happens when alignment replaces ambition. That's what happens when you stop chasing energy and start becoming it. You didn't come into the room to compete. You didn't come to perform. You came as yourself. And the whole damn room rearranged around your presence. This high-profile person noticed it immediately, and not because you were loud, not because you were dressed to impress, but because you didn't need anything. And that right there, that's the kind of power that stops people in their tracks. They're used to curated confidence, practiced charm, people entering their space with scripted smiles and motives wrapped in praise. But you didn't come to take. You didn't come to beg for a spot. You became the spotlight and didn't even know it. Your frequency isn't something you advertise. It precedes you. It speaks before you open your mouth. It interrupts shallow conversations and shifts the atmosphere without effort. And that's what has this person obsessed, because they can't manipulate it. They can't fake it, and they sure as hell can't ignore it. You've mastered what most people never will, being undeniable without being available. They're used to attention being transactional, people trying to get in their orbit for clout, connection, or access. But you didn't orbit. You stood still, and the entire room gravitated toward you like planets to a sun they didn't even know they needed. Your peace was louder than their platform. Your detachment spoke clearer than their press release. Your calm confidence silenced their ego, and that's the exact moment they realized you weren't like the rest. See, you've done the internal work most people avoid. You've faced your insecurities, stripped away the need to prove, and detached from external validation. That kind of self-possession can't be faked. It can't be copied, and it damn sure can't be controlled. That's why they felt the shift when you walked in. You weren't matching the room, you were lifting it, and while others were trying to fit in, your energy made the room expand. You didn't speak loudly, you didn't brag, but somehow conversations paused, eyes followed. Not because you demanded attention, but because your frequency disrupted the background noise of inauthenticity they've grown used to. They can't explain it logically, but their spirit felt it. That's what happens when you walk in alignment. You don't market yourself, your energy markets truth. Your presence holds weight, not because it's curated, but because it's clear, rooted, rare. You're not trying to impress anyone, and ironically, that is what impresses the most. Because in a world starving for attention, you became a magnet without saying a word. You stopped chasing and started choosing. And that's what people crave but don't understand. You don't ask to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. That's why they're watching you. Because for the first time, they're seeing someone move through a room without needing the room. And that's unsettling to them, because they've spent years building a world where people are supposed to need them, crave them, chase them. But you didn't. You brought your full soul. No emptiness, no thirst, no tactics, just vibration, just frequency, just truth, walking upright in human form. And now they can't stop thinking about how effortless it was for you to command the space. Not with a title, not with a name drop, but with presence. You are the living proof that alignment is more magnetic than any strategy, that when you are rooted in who you truly are, the world bends to your frequency, not the other way around. You didn't try to impress them. You didn't try to be seen. You just walked in truth, and that kind of energy, it echoes long after you've left. Number 8. You're the real they couldn't fake. And now it's eating them alive. They studied how to appear authentic. You became it by surviving. That's the gut punch truth this high-profile person can't escape. For years, they've sculpted an identity out of smoke and mirrors. They've rehearsed charm, curated vulnerability, and polished their image until it sparkled. But only on the surface. Underneath it all, they're exhausted, not just tired in the body, tired in the soul. Because wearing a mask 24/7 comes with a price, and they've paid it, piece by piece, silence by silence, compromise by compromise. They look powerful to the world, but they feel hollow in the quiet. And then you came along. You weren't selling yourself. You weren't trying to fit the mold. You just showed up as you are. No branding, no tactics, no spiritual theater, just quiet alignment, just lived wisdom, just truth in motion. And for someone who's built an empire on appearance, your unapologetic reality was like a spotlight on their act. You are what they pretend to be. That sentence alone makes their stomach turn. Because they've memorized the language of healing, but you embody the silence of it. They post quotes. You live them. They perform strength. You are it. They simulate humility. You carry it without trying. That's the difference. You are it, without needing to prove it. You don't craft captions to sound deep. You don't chase enlightenment through filters and followers. You've walked through fire that no one clapped for, and that gave you something they can't replicate: authentic presence. And that's what's driving them mad. They spent their whole life thinking fame, money, and applause would make them feel whole. But now they stand on stages that echo back emptiness. They sit in rooms full of admirers and still feel unseen. Because what they really crave isn't more eyes, it's more soul, more substance, more of what you have. They don't envy your image, they envy your freedom. You move like someone who has nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to trade. Your peace is not performative. Your confidence isn't costume. You didn't build it through branding. You earned it through becoming. You don't need the world's validation to know who you are, and that is terrifying to someone whose entire identity depends on it. Because the louder they get, the more your silence exposes them. The more they flash, the more your calm blinds them. The more they perform, the more your presence whispers truth without needing a single word. That's why they keep watching, because everything they've built feels fragile next to you. Because you don't need the stage to feel powerful. You walk like someone who buried their old self with honor, who sat with shame and still chose softness, who found peace without needing a platform. And that's not something they can buy. It's not something they can copy. It's become you. You are the blueprint they never learned, the truth they tried to skip, the healing they wanted to sell but never swallowed. You carry a kind of clarity that unsettles liars, not because you call them out, but because your very existence contradicts their entire identity. You didn't chase growth for likes. You grew in the dark, alone, and now your light is different. It doesn't ask for attention. It commands respect, and they feel that deeply. Because you remind them of who they were before they lost themselves, before the lights, before the masks, before they traded depth for digestibility. They want what you have, not your life, your truth, not your followers, your freedom, not your voice, your inner peace. And maybe they'll never say it out loud, but they study you. Every move, every silence, every subtle, grounded thing about you that screams, "This is who I am," even when no one's watching. Because that kind of energy, that kind of raw, unfiltered alignment, it doesn't just attract, it awakens.